ya? Itchy. Welcome back, I'm Captain Xavier, and it's Friday, and that means Q&A and fan mail. I don't have a whole lot of fan mail this week, so I'm gonna answer extra questions, because that seems fair. Alex Nam asked, strong arm or hammer shot? This question has been asked, I think, a couple of times in the Q&A, and I know it's been asked during the live streams, and I know I've answered it a couple of times in the comments, as well as in person at Wars. And my answer is gonna be the same as it always has been, yes. Because they are very different blasters, and I believe that they have very different functions. It completely depends on the game you're playing, the way you play. I am not going to say that I believe that one blaster is better than the other, for a number of reasons. But as far as these two blasters go, I believe that the hammer shot is the better HVZ blaster because you can use it one-handed. And in HVZ, that's really important. You need to be able to target multiple people at once. The hammer shot is also easily upgraded all the way up to 8 rounds, which is fantastic. There's also, I think, a 9-round Bunco cylinder for it now, so that gives you a fair amount of ammo that you can use, that you can dual wield. The strong arm, you can kind of dual wield if you make a lanyard for it so that you can prime it by pumping your arms, but it's definitely more awkward than the hammer shot. But the strong arm has slam fire, and in its stock form has better range and more ammo capacity. It has 6. I know there are cylinders. I haven't found a good cylinder that goes up particularly high, but the whole rotating after the trigger pull makes 3D printing cylinders for it a little bit more difficult. But it does have, I believe, greater mod potential as far as the amount of power you can actually get out of a strong arm is greater than you can usually get out of a hammer shot. But I definitely believe that the strong arm is the better blaster for Nerf Wars because of slam fire. You can draw it and pop off 6 rounds really, really fast. And in a Nerf War, that's important. Whereas in HVZ, that's less important because if you do that, you're going to end up putting 3 or 4 darts into one zombie, missing the rest, and then getting swarmed. So you're better off having the reliable dual firing of hammer shots in HVZ, whereas in a Nerf War, you might need to spam that one person who's not undercover. So it really depends on how you play and what you're playing. And this question also kind of goes into a question that I think I've been asked a couple of times and I've avoided up to this point, but I think it's a good time to bring it up. Why don't I do reviews? And there's a couple of reasons. The first is that lots of other people already do. Coop does them, Drac does them, Walcom does them, and they have access to resources that I don't have. They can get blasters way before I can, and so doing early reviews aren't really of any value to me, and reviewing guns that have been out for a decade, it doesn't seem like a good use of my time given that so many other people have already done them. The other reason, and the real reason, and it kind of goes back to my philosophy on Nerf in general, is I don't want to bias anybody. I would absolutely hate it. There is nothing I would hate more than hearing that somebody had told somebody else that their blaster sucked because Captain Xavier said so. And that's simply never going to be the case. And I don't want to ever hear any of my fans ever say that to anybody. There is no such thing as a bad blaster, in my personal opinion. There is no blaster that I would not be willing to run in a war. I would take a Tech 3 onto the battlefield if somebody said that I should give it a try, because it would be hilarious, and it would be fun, and if I ever managed to get a single tag with it, it would be absolutely awesome. And the people that I Nerf with have the same philosophy. If they got tagged out by me packing nothing but a Tech 3, that would be the highlight of their event as well, because that is how we play. We play for fun. We run ridiculous loadouts. I mean, I've run loadouts that I knew were going to be horrific, but they were silly and they were fun. And I've got plans for future loadouts that are every bit as weird. We've got Brett with the Sax BZ. That is amazing. That is the essence of Nerf. The absurdity that you see on the battlefield like that. It is fantastic. And I would never want anybody to feel bad because they didn't have the biggest and the best in a 180'd Rapid Strike or a Rhino'd Strife or something. They've got what they picked up at Goodwill. It was the only blaster available. It's what they had enough money for. They go to the war with it, and somebody walks up to them and goes, "That blaster sucks, you're a noob." That is the antithesis. That is the anathema of all that is Nerf. Nerf is supposed to be fun. That is why I Nerf as opposed to Airsoft or Paintball. I don't find pain fun. And I've discovered that the most of the people who really do serious airsoft and serious paintball take it too seriously for my liking. I like it to be absurd. I like doing the infinite res battles where you're never actually knocked out. You just go resurrect and run back in again, and whoever gets the flag wins. That is what I love about Nerf, is that I don't have to take myself seriously. And people see my gear and they're like, you take yourself seriously. Like, no. My HVZ gear was built for a very specific purpose of playing a character as an actor, essentially. We were the NPCs. We were there to make the game more interesting for the actual players, because we weren't players. We were NPCs. We were game mechanics. We were playing characters. That's where Xavier came from. Or actually, Xavier goes back before that, but the Captain Xavier that you're familiar with came from HVZ at WSU. And that's my philosophy in general. I mean, I put on all of that gear because it made for this badass character walking down the field hunting zombies, and it made the game more fun for everybody. But I would never wear that gear if I was actually playing HVZ as a player. It would be ridiculous. You can't run, it's too heavy, you're too easy to spot, it slows you down, it's ridiculously hot. But as a character, playing an NPC to look like the big badass zombie hunter, yeah, then I'll wear all that gear. I don't wear any of that much gear at wars. I've built a much lighter suit and it's much more comfortable. And I don't wear it all the time. I'll just run out there with, a shield and a sword and just run around getting shot repeatedly because it's amusing. So, there, now you know my philosophy on Nerf. Bipedal Narwhal asks, which War Machine faction do you think is the coolest? I've got a confession for you, Bipedal Narwhal. I know absolutely nothing about War Machine. Your previous question asking which I thought was better, I had to Google it. Sorry. Austin Sternberg. How hard is it to create a foam lightsaber? I have a video on it, and it's not difficult at all. I took just one of the lightsabers you find at Goodwill that extends when you flick it. I took out the blade, I dremeled it out so that I could get a PVC core in there, and then I slid a pool noodle over the top of it and glued it in place. Super simple. And it looks really good, and it's a lot of fun, actually. I've gotten some good kills with it, and I've nearly gotten some fabulous kills with it, only to get shot in the shin at the last second. Turquoise Seal. Okay, as a certified nerd, I must know, which Warhammer 40k faction is your favorite? Mine is Tau. I like the Space Marines. I like the way they look. What I don't like is the whole stagnant technology due to archaic religion aspect of them. The human race in most science fictions is always revered as the most innovative and the most dangerous faction because we're so innovative, and the fact that that has ground to a complete halt in the Imperium of Man, I find disappointing. But what are you going to do? Dale Litton. Would you be willing to come to Indiana for a war? Well, given that that's about 2,000 miles away from me, that's a little bit out of my way for a Nerf war. If I were ever in Indiana, for some reason, I would be happy to look you up and see if you're having a war. The King. When and why did you start to like the Empire? P.S. Will you join me to kill all the rebel scum? I started liking the Empire probably in Empire Strikes Back, because they kicked all of the ass and the walkers were cool and they had the best stuff, the best guns, they were the military, and I liked that. And yes, I would love to kill some rebel scum. If you're actually meaning in some sort of an MMO online, I don't play any of those, so, yeah. Denarius. What are the limitations on Nerf guns in Dystopia Rising? I have no idea. I looked into it once. I went to one Dystopia Rising and discovered that it was not for me. The way that the game was run wasn't the style that I really wanted to do. And that was partly, unfortunately, seriously biased by the fact that just a few weeks before, I had gone to Afterworlds, which is definitely the system that I actually really like. Dystopia Rising was a completely different mechanic, and I absolutely understand why their mechanic exists, and it was really, really well written for that purpose, but that didn't really lend itself to my style and my skill set, so I haven't gone back since, and I didn't really study the rules. I know they don't like heavily modified guns because they don't require any kind of eye protection, and so you could seriously hurt somebody. It's also a very, very melee heavy game, or at least the local one was, for lots of reasons. Melee was more prominent than Nerf guns, and so there was an awful lot of really close contact stuff. So if you're running a 180 rapid strike, you're going to shoot someone in the face at point blank range eventually, and they're really not going to like it. So keep that in mind. I don't know that they actually require it to be stock, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Brick Boss Studios. Hey Chaylo, question for next week. What did you suggest for basic Big Shock mods? I think I actually have a video on this. I'm reasonably certain. The Big Shock can take K26 if you can get a hold of that. You can also easily double up the spring with whatever other spring you have available. I don't know if it'll take number 55 spring, because that's something you can get at Ace Hardware, so it's kind of easier to get a hold of, potentially, than K26. If you want to be able to find rival balls out of it, you can just take out the AR. And the AR and the Big Shock is a lot easier. No, I'm thinking Hot Shock. Taking out the AR and the Big Shock is a pain in the butt. I can do it because I have a drill press and a lot of fancy tools. But definitely a spring upgrade is easy enough. Also, if you make a barrel insert to rebarrel it for Elite, it's possible to make the barrel insert hold down the AR and therefore essentially deactivate it, which will give you a little bit more power. So keep that in mind. Dart Boy! Nerf Hailfire or Nerf Demolisher? Same answer. Depends on what you're doing. They are also completely different guns. The Demolisher has a rocket launcher built into it, and if you're playing a game that has shields, and they can be blown up with rockets, the Demolisher is definitely something very useful. But it doesn't have anywhere near the ammo capacity. If you want to be playing the heavy support, the guy who just stands in the back and just rains darts down so that everyone else can get into position, obviously the Hailfire is excellent. It was the highest capacity Nerf gun up until the Nemesis came out. If you put all 22s in that thing, or 18s if that's what you've got, you can get a lot of ammunition in that and not have to reload. You can also easily reload the magazines, switch out magazines that are empty for full ones while still having a full magazine in the chamber. So it's a fairly epic weapon as far as being able to lay down a lot of darts really, really fast. But Demolisher has a rocket launcher, so depends on what class you're playing, depends on your game style, depends on what game you're playing. Both of them are good for HVZ because I have played HVZs where you needed rockets to take out certain zombies. So if nobody has a rocket launcher, you're hosed. It's also semi-automatic and flywheel, and so lots and lots of precise fire against lots and lots of zombies. So yeah, Trico Gamer 2. Do you think having a Titan tank in a mag strike could work while still having the pump functional and still maintain a little bit of the stock? I have no idea. The air tank in a normal mag strike is actually a expandable rubber bladder that gets filled up when you pump it, whereas the Titan is a solid tank and the air is released from the back. And I have no idea how you would link up the pump so that it would feed into the Titan, and I have no idea how you would use the release so that it would link up. I really don't think it would work very well. There are much better ways to go about it. John actually took a second mag strike bladder and hooked it into a mag strike so he had double the air capacity and therefore had double the amount of magazines he could go through. Plus he cut down the OPRVs. And so he could get 4 full magazines out of 1 full pumping. It took a while to pump it up, but that was a lot of really, really heavy fire. Barbro Studios. Is there a Nerf club in Virginia? Yes, it is called the Virginia Nerf Club, and you can find it on Facebook. Blake Hudson. Can you keep everything stock in a Captain Capian and/or blaster and run it with IMRs? The flywheels, obviously, it's essentially a strife, a really fancy, really expensive, noisy strife. And and you can run 2 IMRs in a strife with it being completely stock and not have to worry about it burning out. Once you go to 3 IMRs, you're gonna eventually burn out your motors or your switch or your wiring. 4 IMRs, just don't do it. With the Captain Cassian blaster, though, what you're going to risk is burning out the light and sound, and I have no idea what their tolerance is for being overvolted. I haven't tried it, and I haven't looked into anyone else who's tried it. I'm sure somebody somewhere has done it, just put IMRs in until it blew up. 2 IMRs is not that much more voltage, but LEDs and electronics can be very susceptible to voltage. It doesn't take much to burn out an LED if you're not careful, so I wouldn't risk it, frankly. If you really want to try it, I would do a separate power source. The Captain and/or blaster is big. There's a lot of room in there if you wanted to put in a separate battery pack for the sound and then rig up a completely different power relay circuit for the flywheels. That is what I would recommend. But I wouldn't recommend putting IMRs just in because you're probably going to burn something out. Stormtrooper 1138. Hello, Captain from Tennessee. Hello in Tennessee. What is the best way to minimize a Sledgefire and modding a side strike? Also, when you start making Mandalorian armor, could you make videos about the process? If I ever start making Mando armor, absolutely, I will video it. The side strike, you can do a spring upgrade, you can brass the barrel, you could remove the AR. It won't take K26 because of the indirect priming rod, so there's a limit to how much power you can do it, but if you could definitely probably double the spring at least, and brass and remove the AR, since it's a single shot pistol. As for minimizing a Sledgefire, you take out a couple of screws and you can take the stock off if you want to do that. There are 3D printed plugs that you can put in there instead, either just to put a lanyard loop or other bits that you can have on there. And you can actually cut down the barrel quite a bit if you really want to. I don't think it's really necessary, but you definitely can. It might make it a little more difficult to prime it, but if you added a handle of some kind, you could cut the barrel down. But other than that, you can't cut the handle down much because that's where the actual the spring is. It goes down into the handle like it does for the hammer shot. I Has Bounce asks, science fiction or typical fantasy? Dragons and dwarves and such. Both. I really don't have a preference. I love D&D stuff, Game of Thrones, all that kind of high fantasy, Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. Absolutely, I mean, I grew up reading Lord of the Rings. I still read the Silmarillion in the bathtub. And science fiction, I love Star Wars, I love Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Firefly, any of those types of things. Absolutely love them. I am also a fan of anything Dark Age conspiracy. If you're not familiar with that concept, it's anytime you're in a setting where magic exists but nobody knows about it because they hid it from us. That is part of the Dark Age conspiracy world, as there was, back in the Roman times and all back then, we knew that magic existed, we knew the gods existed, we knew about fairies and all of that. And then in the Dark Ages, the church came along and they hid it all in this massive conspiracy, thus Dark Age conspiracy. So Harry Potter, True Blood, Twilight, the Dresden Files, those are all Dark Age conspiracy settings. And I love them, especially the Dresden Files. That's my absolute favorite book series, probably, of all time. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. It's magnificent. And I like that as well. I'm a very well-rounded nerd. Joey Visconti. Captain, do you have any plans on filming build guides for your shoulder weapons? I think I actually started them at one point and never finished them because they're actually, some of them are kind of complicated. And I was just getting my channel started, and I didn't want to get into the complex internals at that time. At some point, I will go back. A couple of them I need to work on again, so I definitely want to go back and take a look at them again. So, and when I do, I will film it. No, damn it! Paper Guy, Chaylo. Have you ever tried to make a modular afterburner, and would it work? Somebody has done it. It recently popped up on YouTube and all over the internet. It does work. It's fantastic, and I want one. I have been planning to make one. It's on my list of to-do, but my list of to-do is very, very long, and I haven't been getting any of it done lately. Yeah, I would like to have one that goes onto any standard barrel mount, just because that would be really neat. You could you could put it on a deploy, on a recon, on an alpha trooper, and get some decent additional FPS out of it. I think I'm going to do mine differently than the one that I saw, but not a whole lot differently. I have plans. Daniel Lindsley, I got to finish his blaster. 2 questions. Would you be willing to have the mod party sign my Stampede? Absolutely. And secondly, do you think it would be possible to make an elite chambered absolver shotgun out of a Bunco Halo Brute Spiker? Yes, I do, and I think that would be fantastic. I think that would look absolutely wicked. That would be a gorgeous shotgun. You could easily put a Titan in there and have a pump and have it be modular and take all my various attachments and have it be, you know, up to probably a 6-round absolver on there. I think that would look fantastic. And the way it's designed, I think it would be really easy. So I may just add that to the list. Also, one of these days, I will finish your Stampede. All I need to do is put the voltmeter in it. But now I will wait until the next mod party, do it at the mod party, and have everybody sign it while they're there. I don't know when that's going to be, though. Bricks 2K1. What recommendations do you have for someone who's never soldered any electronics? I'm tempted to try an auto-fire kit for at least 2 of the strifes I've got. Is this kit itself difficult, and what battery recommendations do you have for such a kit? Thanks, and keep up the awesome content. Well, I have a video on how to do the full auto kit, and I'm going to be doing more because I'm building a bunch of them for Jomo. So I'll be doing the wiring explanations on that. To learn to solder, there's lots and lots of videos on how to do it. I had to watch a few, then I was doing it wrong for years, it turns out. And since I watched some videos, I can now do it fairly simply. The auto-fire kit is actually very, very simple, and the strife itself is very, very simple. Because it's 2 motors that are wired together. If you want to do the auto-fire kit, you really do need to upgrade the motors, which means you're going to have to desolder and resolder everything. You're going to want to upgrade the switch. The ones that I have built, I ran off 4 IMRs for running on Rhinos, and then 2 IMRs to run the pusher motor. It is possible to run them all off of the same power source. You could obviously run it on LiPo if you wanted to go with that rather than IMRs. I know that's the new preference is LiPos. I've finally made the switch. I just need to get the rest of a charger. Yeah. There's lots of videos out there on auto strifes, so take a look at them. Chaotic Cody asks, are your Legos organized? Yes, to a degree. They're sorted by color, and then 7 categories for each color. So there's a big stuff category, so in like red, that's like the boat hulls and large window pieces and rowboats and whatever else is large and would get in the way of the other bins. There's then a brick bin, a plate bin, a specialty brick bin, which is all the weird bricks, like archways and bricks that have hooks on them or knobs or hinges or whatever. Specialty plates, which are all the angled plates and the weird plates and the round plates and the flat hinges and anything that's plate-like but not just a simple square or rectangle. Then there is a slopes, all of the slanted bricks, because I have enough of them in any color for them to qualify for their own bin. And then an other bin, which is all of the weird stuff, chairs and steering wheels and ladders and stuff. And I have that for every color. And I am actually tempted. I wish I'd gotten more of the bins that I ordered. They were on clearance at Walmart and were practically giving them away, and now they're like $40 for the sets that I have. I wish I could get more because I'd like to subdivide some of my stuff. I would like to subdivide the grays into light gray and dark gray, because when I'm using them, I'm either using one or the other, and it's a pain in the to dig through both colors. I also would kind of like to separate my black and probably my gray, because those are the colors I have the most of. Separate the bricks into square bricks and thin bricks, and the plates into narrow plates and big plates, just so it makes it that much easier to sift through, but I don't have the bins, so. Gabe the Doge. Captain Xavier, what is your favorite lightsaber? By that I mean hilt and color. I don't don't really have one. I mean, I thought the dark saber was pretty cool, the one that the Mandalorians have, but I also always kind of liked Darth Maul's because it's a long-handled, double-edged lightsaber. I actually really liked it when he used it with only the one blade, because having the really long hilt meant he had a lot more leverage than a normal lightsaber wielder would have. He was using it more like a bastard sword or a German longsword as opposed to a katana, which has the slightly smaller handle. But never really had much of a preference, truly. Tankmaster! If you could have any Nerf gun from the last 5 years, what would it be? I think I have every Nerf blaster from the last 5 years. I really wanted a regulator, and I have one of those. I would really like a Nemesis, to be perfectly honest. They're cheap, they're horrible, and they're magnificent. I used one in a war, and it's glorious. You go through the ammo really, really fast, though. Kuchowski Howard. What would your opinion be on a flywheel shotgun? It would be 2 pairs of flywheels, be semi-auto, and have a single handle grip. So kind of like a semi-automatic deleter. That would be fantastic. Wacom recently did a video on technically a flywheel shotgun, but it fires 1, 2, or 3 consecutively, as opposed to side by side. Basically, you're describing a doubled strife, which I think was recently done, actually. But I think it would be a great idea. Just because I like shotguns, and that would be a shotgun pistol that takes magazines, which would be awesome. Jackson Miller. Hey Cap, what size pipe do you use to make a coupler for Drain Blaster, or if you would make a video on all the parts you need to do so? Also, a cheese ball shotgun for ire. Fairly certain I could load cheese balls into any number of the barrels I already have. It would just be messy. As for the pipe, I have a number of videos on how I do my absolvers. I use either 1/2-inch PVC or 3/4-inch PVC, depending on your preference. Ire is barreled for 1/2 because of all the different attachments. Some of them were smaller, and the 1/2-inch worked better. For most of the drain blasters I've done since then, I've used 3/4 because it's a little bit bigger and allows better airflow. WCDL for you asked, do you know if there is a Northeastern Nerf Club? Yes, it is called the Northeast Nerf Club and can be found on Facebook or Google. For the rest of you, if you're wondering if there's a Nerf Club in your area, try Facebook or Google. If there isn't, start one. Also, what is your favorite LEGO series? My favorite LEGO series was the Castle series from 1990 and 1991. They had 4 major factions. They had the Black Knights, the Crusaders, the Wolfpack, and the Forestmen. And I loved the little storylines that they had and the way the sets were designed with each other in mind. So there were castle sets that had a Forestman who was in the prison, or they had Wolfpack sets that were involved in all that kind of stuff. And I thought that was entirely too cool, having all the different factions and having them being very distinct and having different sets for them all. And there was such a variety of sets, and some of the castle sets combined to create bigger castles, which I didn't know at the time. I felt like a darned fool when I figured that out later. But that was definitely, I consider, the golden age of LEGO, and I've been mourning its decline ever since. Lightning Eagle 14. What is the shirt you are wearing? I am currently wearing my Batmoose shirt that I got in Alaska. At the time that you asked this, I was wearing the WSU HVZ shirt. They had t-shirts for as a fundraiser, and I had to have one. Void Walker. Captain, what is the weirdest thing you have seen at a Nerf war? Either Brett running around dressed as Freddie Mercury with a saxophone with an XBZ in it, or Brett running around armed with nothing but a plastic candy cane. Those kinds that you have to come with candy in them. He wielded that at the Fort Worden War and actually got several kills with it because he is sneaky and fast, and Fort Worden was all close quarters. It was magnificent. I didn't see it, but I heard it, and it was hilarious. Anthony McCulloch. Would you ever make a Nerf grenade, and could it be effective? We have space stations, so yes, the technology obviously is possible. Do I think it would be easy? No. I've seen a number of people who have 3D printed them and they take the CO2 tanks that airsoft grenades use, so it actually is impact, it shoots Nerf darts out. But making it safe is the problem, because if you threw that and it hit somebody, that could be a problem. Now, there are the scatter blasts by Lanard, and I've got a couple of those, and they work fairly well, but they shoot the darts straight out the back, which isn't nearly as effective as, a round. What you would really want is an airburst Nerf grenade, and that would be a lot more difficult. Though if you had something on a line, so you threw it, and when it reached the end of the line that pulled a pin that released the darts, that might actually work, because you could throw that around cover and possibly take somebody out. It's something I've been thinking about. It's not something I've ever been able to actually get to work yet. So, there you have it. John Jackson. Captain Xavier Q&A. Do you like heavy metal? And do you like rap music? I like some heavy metal, and I like some rap music. It depends on which one. There are very few genres of music where I don't like any of it. There's usually at least one song in any particular genre that I will like. Most of all, what I like is music that you can partner dance to. So I like anything that you can do West Coast swing to, East Coast swing to. I like things you can foxtrot to. Those are kind of my favorite dances. And that's generally what I really like when it comes to music. I also like upbeat music that makes you feel better about the world. But of course, I am also a fan of good old angry white boy music. Your Linkin Park and that sort of thing, because that's the era that I grew up in. Yannick! Hey, Captain X, I'm curious, what kind of melee damage do you prefer? Depends on the scenario. If you're talking about D&D, my characters always had them all. Just because I liked playing either fighters or dwarven clerics, and so I could have a mace that did bashing and piercing, and I could also use, an axe because I'm a dwarf, so I'd have all of the bases covered. If I had fighters, they always had a little bit of everything, and I tried to always save up so that I could get adamantine versions of every kind of damage. So if I came across something that had damage reduction 20 piercing, I was covered. Or hardness 5 damage reduction slashing, I had that covered. So, yeah, it comes down to the what you're dealing with. For dueling, I favor the rapier, which is definitely a piercing, kind of slashing, but mostly piercing weapon. For heavy, I like the bill, which has all of them. So, yeah. Travis Sullivan. Hey Cap, what is your favorite Marvel superhero, and do you like their powers or character better? Marvel? I always kind of liked Gambit. And it was because it was a combination. The whole Cajun thing I thought was always interesting, and I liked that he used his powers in interesting ways, as opposed to, being pigeonholed to, I slash things with the claws that come out of my hand. That's not nearly as interesting as doing something like, I'm going to touch this bucket full of nails. The bucket's going to explode, shoot nails and everything, and then the nails are going to explode. That's an interesting use of your powers, which is why I liked characters that were smart and creative, as opposed to, can I punch it into the sun? No, then I'm out of ideas. I like guys who expand their powers and find new powers, which is why, tragically, I really liked Sylar in Heroes, because he learned to use his powers when he got them. There were a lot of people that he killed to get their powers that they'd never even bothered to develop half of the tricks he learned. He was obviously the bad guy and was a horrible person, but he was interesting. Stu Thedo the Gamer. Is there a South Wisconsin Nerf club or something like that? Well, once again, Facebook or Google. This one I couldn't actually find one though, so you might have to start it. Or they're calling themselves something other than Wisconsin Nerf Club. Grumpy Northman. What is your favorite breech-loading blaster? Probably the rough cut, honestly. As far as breech loaders go, it's pretty wicked. 2 shots, 8 pump action, pretty snazzy for a breech loader. And what is your opinion on Zuru's X-Shot line? I think they're fantastic. I've featured 2 of them. Obviously, I love the X-Shot Eliminator, ridiculously powerful shotgun, and I made one into a shotgun pistol. And I've got a full-length one that I also have. Their 6-shot revolver can take a ridiculous spring load because it's rear prime rather than slide prime. And they've got the little 3-shot one that I haven't tinkered with yet. I got a hold of one, but I haven't busted it open because I haven't had an excuse to yet. it'll probably get featured in this series of Can It Take a K-26, because it appears to be the off-brand season. Jesse Nunez. Do you always have to rewire a blaster if you use 1 to 3 IMRs? No. Most stock blasters work perfectly good on 2. If you go to 3, you're probably going to want to start upgrading the internals, or they will eventually burn out. 4, they will definitely burn out. 1 isn't enough power to even operate any of them. So, and can you mix 1 IMR or 2 with 2 or 3 alkaline batteries, or do you always have to use dummy batteries with IMRs? You have to use dummy batteries with IMRs. If you use 2 different voltage batteries in the same device, one of them will explode, and that's bad. So yeah, dummies. If you're using IMRs, definitely dummies. And you want to make sure that the IMRs are charged to the same voltage. Otherwise, bad things can happen because one pulls too much and it overheats and blows up. Preston Jones. Do you know if Iowa has a Nerf club? Google. Also, I couldn't find one. You might have to start. Sebastian Hernandez. Is it possible to make a full loadout of melee and throwables, or make a shield with attachments for bayonets? Yes. I have run melee only a couple of times. Shield and lightsaber is actually remarkably effective for certain game types. Just because the lightsaber doesn't run out of ammo. I also, bayonet attachments on a shield, you could do a punch buckler, but I would be surprised if many groups allowed it unless it's a fully padded shield. I know the one we have doesn't allow shield bashing at all for reasons of safety, obviously. Last thing you want to do is bash somebody's Nerf gun into their face. That would just be not kosher. Alejandro Gonzalez. Captain Xavier, do you think it would be possible to inaugurate, I assume you mean integrate, 2 rapid strikes and a lightsaber into a Vulcan to have extra firepower? What? How? What? If you're asking if you could put 2 flywheel guns into the shell of a Vulcan, well, I will say what I always say about such questions. With enough epoxy, you can integrate anything into anything. You could integrate a Centurion into a Jolt if you had enough epoxy. I don't know about the lightsaber. What I'm kind of picturing is 2 rapid strikes with a lightsaber in between them, which would actually be pretty cool. And if you use the Vulcan... Oh, see, okay, I think I see what you're saying. So, 2 fully automatic flywheel blasters, I assume magazines sticking out the bottom, carry handle on the top, and the Vulcan handle the way it's designed with a long lightsaber out the front. That would actually be a wicked, wicked weapon, and I want somebody to make it so that I can see it. Yes, I think it would work. It would be an incredible amount of integration. You'd basically just be cutting, just slapping 2 rapid strikes side by side and then gluing the back end of a Vulcan onto it, and then possibly putting some kind of a frame to give it some shape. But I think that would actually look really, really cool. I like that idea. Rock on Knotman. For your next Q&A, from your time dating, how do girls react to you playing with Nerf and Legos? I think you're giving my dating life too much credit. I haven't actually dated much. And I really, at the time, when I was in college, I hadn't gotten into Nerf yet. I got into Nerf at the very end of college, and I didn't have my Legos with me in college. So they didn't really know about it. And the girl I was dating when I started getting into Nerf, she didn't have a problem with the Nerf at all. I'd just gotten into it, so I didn't have a whole lot of it, honestly. I started collecting it towards the end of that relationship. So, and I got really, really into it after she moved back to Alaska, and there was kind of a void in my life that needed filling, and I filled it with Nerf from Goodwill. The most recent one, I met her through Medieval Recreation, and she's the one who wields Hildir, so she's obviously into Nerf and all of that crazy combat stuff. And she loves Lego. She actually helped build the stable in my current castle. That was all done by Seamstress at Arms. We're still seeing each other. So, yeah, ultimately it comes down to the girl. If this is something you want to be into, Lego and Nerf, as it were, or just Lego or just Nerf, find a girl who's into it. they do exist. Girls like Lego, girls like Nerf. If you can find one that likes both, that is fantastic. Alternatively, I have guys who come to my mod parties, their wives or their girlfriends are not into it whatsoever, but they don't seem to have a problem with their significant other being into it. And that's really just a matter of your relationship. A healthy relationship, you should be able to have hobbies that the other one doesn't share, but is okay with. Now, if you're spending all of your money and all of your time on Nerf and not enough on your girlfriend, well, that's your fault. They have a right to be angry. So, Savage Fan, yo dog, can you turn an airsoft gun into a Nerf gun? Well, if you mean can you put Nerf internals in an airsoft gun, with enough epoxy you can put anything in anything. If you're wondering if you can actually just re-barrel an airsoft gun, I have no idea. I really don't know how they work. I understand they're similar to Nerf guns in concept, but they're firing a much, much smaller projectile, so I don't know if they'd have anywhere near enough power, or if they're so powerful that they'd have too much power. Never tinkered with it. I did see a video where a guy put a fully automatic airsoft gun into a Stampede and took it to an airsoft event, which confused the heck out of everybody, which I thought was pretty cool. John Lewis, dear Captain Xavier, as you have mentioned before, video games make you motion sick. Do movies have the same effect? Most movies don't. There was an era there for a little while, they've done less of it now, where anytime they wanted to have an action sequence, they went full shaky cam. And that made me motion sick as all get out. I actually had to leave the theater when I went to see 28 Weeks Later, because as soon as the zombies were loose and the everything started going shaky cam, I nearly threw up in my popcorn, so I had to leave. 3D movies also do that to me. When I went and saw Avatar, I had to leave the theater and take a breather and get some water and let my stomach settle and then go back in and watch the whole thing with only one eye open, which really kind of ruins the 3D effect, but it made me less motion sick. Now I've learned my lesson. If I know I'm going to be watching a movie that's probably got an action sequence, or I know I want to go see a 3D movie, I mainline some Dramamine, some motion sick pills, and then I'm fine. And finally, Caleb Smith. Do you think a homemade PVC rival sniper would work? I would probably put a full KD-26 in it, but I think that the rival ammo slows down too fast for long range. Thoughts? This is what I have heard from Out of Darts, who's done a lot more experimenting with rival rounds than I have. Because they're so much larger than a Nerf dart, they have a lot more wind resistance, and because they don't have any kind of a heavy plastic head, they also are going to slow down a lot. I have not heard of anybody like opening up a rival ball and putting something denser inside it and then gluing it back together to try to get more mass, and I wouldn't recommend it because, once again, I mean, force equals mass times acceleration. If you get it moving really fast, it's going to hurt. But that's what I've heard, is that they do, as you say, slow down too much and they get really inaccurate, oddly enough, after a certain range. Once the spin leaves it. And that's what I discovered with the Chaos, or the Nemesis, when I took it out, is it was hell on wheels at about 40 feet, but at 50 feet, your guess is as good as mine where it's going to hit. So, yeah. I have seen somebody who made muskets and flintlock style pistols using rival, where you actually loaded it with a ramrod, and I want one so bad. They were so cool looking. And I just love the whole fact that you loaded it like you should. So, yes. All right. Packages. If I didn't get to your question, put it in the comments of this video, and hopefully I'll get to it next week. I do them in the order that they were received, so the earlier you get your comment in, the more likely you are to be in the Q&A next week. Alright, I got no letters this week, but I did get an envelope and a strangely large package, so I'm looking forward to seeing what's in there. First one, we'll start with the little one. Motors. Thank you for the help regarding the Rapid Strike Rewire. Put these to good use, Rickson. And they are... Ooh, they're Michelle 2 motors. Sweet! I have been wanting to give these a try. I've got the 2S lipos that these are supposedly run beautifully on, so I want to give them a try and compare them to the Artifact motors that I got from tactical foam as well as rhinos. So we'll have some side-by-side stuff. So that'll be pretty cool. Thank you. Awesome. And now, le package. Package a sweet, buttery goodness. Ooh! I have been wanting me one of these. I have no idea exactly how it works, but I want one, and I have one, and it's gonna be wicked. Thank you for that. That is cool. Alright. The Secret Shot. The purse-looking one. Qualcomm just did a review on this and said that it's really quite fantastic, and I've been wanting one. And I think it's quite wicked. I'm also going to do what he recommended. I'm definitely going to paint it up to look like a med kit. Because I think that would look pretty cool. Fabulous. Alright. Ooh. Pretty sure this is the very thing that Qualcomm wields at our Nerf wars quite often and wrecks us all with. Oh, good lord, there's two of them. Oh no, this is a different. It may be broken. I don't know. Doesn't seem to be ratcheting. Or maybe it only... Oh, because it's Bunco, it won't fire unless it's loaded. That one does, though. Maybe the lock's been removed. Does it usually have a manual prime as well? I don't know what's going on. I don't know much about Bunco. I haven't dabbled in it. I will have to do some research. What is this from? Oh, it's Wonder Woman. Oh, is this some kind of a... I assume there was a shield? It's a handle with a gun built into it. That's all I know. And that is pretty cool. I don't know if it's supposed to be a shield or if this is all there was to it. It looks like it attached to something. There's definitely rail there. Is that... Wait, that's not just Nerf rail, is it? I need a Nerf gun. It is, in fact, Nerf rail. That's fantastic. I love that. I definitely want to see how much of an upgrade that can take. This will be getting added to the, oh, I think I have enough for a full Marvel episode now. Sweet! Aha! All of the flippy type blasters. That could be an episode. Another one of these Skylanders Mavericks, also with something rattling loose in it. Ooh, pre-modified magazines. Very nice. He's already hot glued it. This one is not hot glued. Very cool. And that's bag number one. Bunco darts. Another Iron Man flip-outy type blaster. I think I have this one, actually. I like it. I can have one on both hands now. Ah, Raider stocks. Can never go wrong with Raider stocks. Barrel attachments. Love those, especially this one because it's got more barrel. Triads. Can never have too many triads. Ooh! A vortex scope. Those are hard to come by. It looks like it's been led a rough life. I wonder if it still works. If not, it's still cool looking. Triad number the second one. Cool. Ooh! A messenger. I think I now have two of these. I'm looking to actually create an all-Rebel pistol loadout with 2 messengers, 2 sweet revenges, and 4 victories, all on a vest. And now I think I have all the parts. Awesome, thank you. Recon barrel. Retaliator barrel. Wait a minute! There's 2 of them! Yes! Sweet! And last but not least, Sweet Jesus. It's a bazooka. He sent me a bazooka. Oh. Oh, please let this thing still work. Oh. Oh, I hope this works. The things that I will do with this piece of equipment. This is basically Ayer's system, but with a much more powerful automatic pump. This thing automatically pumps until it's full, and then it fires. And I know where this will probably be going, and I'm not telling you. This, oh man, this is an awesome haul. There is just so much stuff here that I didn't have. I mean, there's actually very little stuff here that I did have. I didn't have the Bunco, I didn't have the purse, I didn't have whatever these awesome things are. I definitely didn't have this. And this, oh, this, sir, you sir, who are you? Whoever you are, you're awesome. Is there a note? How can you send me this much awesome and not send me a note? Are you the person who actually emailed me the note? I don't remember. Whoever you are awesome. And this is, oh, so much cool stuff. All right. Okay. Well, there you have it. This is all. My fans are the awesomest fans ever. All right. I'll quit geeking out now. If you have questions that you'd like answered, put them in the comments of this video, and I will hopefully get to them next time. If I don't, try the week after that. If you want to send me a letter or send me great piles of cool stuff because you're awesome, all of my contact information is in the description of my videos. I think this is Bunco. It is Bunco. How did Bunco get a hold of Marvel? Alright. So, sidetrack slightly, these actually are Bunco, not Nerf, and that is even better. Okay, back to where I was saying. If you have comments, concerns, questions, ideas, please put them in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys. I try to read all the comments, and I will try to comment or answer them as quickly as possible. I have been really busy and scattered and trying to get stuff done. Hopefully I will get back to building weird and wacky cool things for you guys in the near future once I get done with all of the things I've promised to do for other people. So stay tuned. And as always, thank you for watching.